Live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another Supercoach Insider podcast. My name is Swiz, back on a Wednesday night. I'll send my apologies in a moment because I have been missing, but I am back. And I'm joined by a special guest today from and I better get this right, the Footy Kicking Good podcast, new podcast with us this year. And it is Trav. Welcome, mate.
Thanks, Swiz. Thanks for having me. Good to see you here.
No problems, mate. You're joining the long life of Parkfield people, obviously my cricket club and your cricket club, who come on. So we've obviously known each other from a long time, and probably the back of the days when I used to coach you as a young fella.
Yeah, I was gonna say, good to return the favour. You always spent time coaching me as a junior, so glad to be here to give you a bit of time back.
Yeah, I do appreciate that, mate. So, yeah, we're obviously going to be here to talk some footy and Supercoach and stuff. And as always, on a Wednesday, we do have a lot of viewers that will jump on and ask questions. But before we jump into that, as always, check us out on all our social media platforms, in particular the YouTube, Spotify. Get in touch with us via X, Supercoach Insider 100 or Swiz26 for me directly. Now, let's talk about the podcast quickly, mate. Footy Kicking Good, where do we find it for starters? And let's just talk a little bit about it.
So it's actually run by my brother-in-law, and his name's Jamie. So it's on YouTube. He's got Spotify as well. Type in Footy Kicking Good. Just remember that the kicking is with an N and an apostrophe. There's no G. So Footy Kicking Good, YouTube, Spotify. He's got an Instagram page as well. Jump on. Pretty similar to this. Just real, not so much Supercoach, but just real casual guys who love footy coming on. Jamie has a great run through always with a good structure and asks a lot of thought-provoking questions. Ends up meant to be normally a 40-minute pod, but ends up going for an hour because the questions are that good. Oh yeah, Footy Kicking Good, get on it. Great podcast, good to be part of.
No, I love it, and I did say to Jamie, I'll give it a hit. I did see another Parkfield person, Wayne, was on there as well.
Yeah, he's actually gone through a couple of Parkfield players. Jeremy Neuer,
Jeremy Neuer too,
as well. Yeah, a lot of Parkfield fellas get it on the Footy Kicking Good. It's good to see.
Yeah, so no, it's great, and they're doing. And I do say this: we've got our community out there. I don't listen to a huge amount of podcasts these days. Obviously, once you start recording and you listen to yourself back, and there's a lot going on there. I probably don't listen to as much footy podcasts as I used to. There's always a lot more like true crime and other stuff if I'm going not down the music route. But I have been listening to you guys, and you're doing a great job. So keep it up there. So check it out, and that'll be in the show notes too, guys. So just scroll through our show notes, and if you want the link to check out what the boys are doing with some footy chat, that's always good. Like I think a lot of the community out there like to fill their day with footy stuff. So keep up the great work there. On my behalf, guys, I do apologize for not being here for the last 2 weeks. I usually try my best to be here every single Wednesday night and sometimes Fridays. I've just come off working 12 shifts in a row, starting at sort of 3-4 a.m. in the morning. So I am pretty stuffed. Apart from a few other things, there's a couple of people know of stuff going on in my life. And then and on top of that, we obviously had the Cricket Club AGM, and I went to the Offspring concert, which so all these things that were clashing and trying to fit in, as much as I was just like, how can I fit into podcasting? And I wanted to do stuff. But yeah, I just had literally no time, which I feel bad. But it was great to see, firstly, the community, people that were actually checking in, making sure I was all right. Absolute legends about that. So I do appreciate that. And then those who hit me up, and I had a ton of questions still coming through on the X through everything else that you guys send. So as I said, always happy to answer questions as long as it's not a Saturday, because I'm usually playing cricket still. Some of us still play through the winter, Trav. I do need to play this week if you're available. But it's always hard for me on Saturday. But if Thursday, Fridays, guys, if you have questions, I usually do my best to try to obviously answer them, and always the best chances, obviously, when we're doing the Wednesday night chat, or send your question beforehand and I'll try to answer it tonight. Supercoach, mate, how are you going this year?
A bit of an indifferent year. I'd say I started off really badly. So over the last couple of weeks, I've climbed a bit more in the rankings, just a bit of luck. I didn't have Horn Francis. So this week I was okay rank-wise for the Rand, and then brought up my overall. I think the biggest thing I've done lately, which has helped a lot, I traded in Rowan Marshall for Flynn 2 weeks ago, actually. So I copped his 100 last week, and then luckily this week he went 179, which has really helped the team. I'm normally quite risk-averse when it comes to Supercoach. So you'll see me with my team generally. I'll try and save a few trades. I think I still have 21 trades left for now. And I'll try and win towards the end of the year, especially in my Parkfield League. Unfortunately, as Painey would have said, he would have seen Swiz, I didn't win for the first 6 weeks, I think, in Div 3 Parkfield. So really trying to stack towards back end of there just to make sure a win fighter doesn't get up to Div 2 and eventually get up to you in Div 1 and the prestigious Div 1, as Wayne Pereira keeps telling me that there's no point playing Parkfield League if you're in Div 3.
Yeah, I believe, I could be wrong to point it out, guys, but I'm pretty sure I'm on top of Div 1 this year.
Oh, there
So
you go. And I'm pretty sure it's a very highly ranked league, Swiz.
it is a very highly ranked
Yeah.
league. There's a few that I'm in. So that one does fairly well. I got to give a shout out to the A team league. I'm trying to think, actually, I'll look it up where we are. We've dropped outside the top 20. I think we were still in the top 10 until probably 2 weeks ago. Joe, our good friend from Centre Bounce, and for all the other actually shows he does, because he does so many now, and that him and a couple of the other boys had an absolute stinker. But there's a few former winners in that, as we always talk about, and they're flying. But my good mate Grimo's on top of that, which is a big shout out on 13th, just behind. Actually, I think I'm ahead of JP now. So cop that, JP, former winner. But yeah, the league's always interesting, and we always say, there's only one person that can win overall. You obviously want a great overall ranking, but it starts to get through this stage where, there's so much going on, especially those people who are part of the Skodfather and his cash league, which was $100 to buy in, and the 500 people who are playing for different games for there. And I think there was a couple of people messaged me about trades that they were doing just to win the mini games that he was doing. So there's so much different things to play for, which, you obviously, you see these online forums and people ask questions and people have a crack at it, and it's going, well, you don't know if they're playing just for league or, or where they're at with it. So, at the moment, obviously you're 10,000th, but that can change very quickly. And I always find rankings change massively through the buys. So you kind of look at your team this week, and it's been good. Like, you got Zach Reed, who unfortunately I don't have, which has been a killer. But him and Pryor is going to start needing to be traded out. Max Hall still been making cash for you. Saad's a bit of a frustrating one because he will be dropped this week.
As an Essendon man, I think Angus Clark come in and play in that wing role, defense role. I think, as bad as it is, I think he will be dropped.
Yeah, no, Saad is. I've had my my very reliable source on that has messaged me and say, Clark will be replacing Saad this week. So that's obviously disappointing. And then you've got the McRae with the punctured lung. At least the Conning is back this week with the hold there, so it's not as brutal as some other teams. I was just always happy for people feedback, negative as well. And I've had putting up Oliver's team because he was been having a few cracks on me on social media today about a couple of ideas I had for trades, and I was just having a look and saying, well, I think he's going to get away with Wanganeen Malira because he was looking like he had an ankle issue, but should be right now. But when you got your Finn Callahan, Horn Francis, McRae all out injured, some people are going to be in this situation this week. His Daywicks' cover is going to get dropped as well. I think a lot of people are going to be facing this situation. There's going to be a lot of questions tonight going, what the hell do I do with all these players who are out injured? The team looks fine, a very mid-pricey team at the moment, but you can have to find some options there to side swap, and I think a lot of people are going to be in that sort of situation. So you're probably lucky, Trav, on that sense, because a lot of other people are going to be, I think, hurting this week.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues we have right now, I think you mentioned it earlier, is cash gen. So those trades, I saw you spruiking trading out Max Gorn for cash. Personally, as I was saying, I'm risk averse. I wouldn't do that, but it sort of makes sense, because if you look aside from Cooper Simpson, where else are you going to generate this new cash coming in? Like, I understand you've got rookies that you can trade out, but who are you trading them at to make that 200K to put on top of someone else? Quite tricky at the moment.
I love how you've segued into that, because yes, I have been obviously talking about that all online today, and it was brought up, I think, by Stu, and we've been already talking about that, especially in our A League and our content creators and our former champions chat. So different people have different opinions. We know my co-host Chris is very aggressive with this sort of stuff. Skodfather, these guys, this is the way they play, and this is why they do rank high a lot. I'm quite famous for trading out Grundy a couple of years ago when he was flying, and paid out massive dividends when it did. So you do risk and reward, but sometimes what's the worst case you happen? You drop some rankings and whatever, you can still rebound and get your leagues. But these are the sort of decisions you can make, which will help fly up your rankings if it all goes well with you. So a quick chat about my team. So I'm up inside the 3,000. I think I'm 3,000th or something. One really bad week and two bad captains this season has really cost me that top 1,000. But as you can see there, holding Trainer over Reed was an absolute brutal decision, the way it's gone out. Bryce has got to go soon. Trainer, Lindsay's still playing slightly a rogue. Hopefully Gross actually gets a full game and can sort of restart, but that bench is looking a bit sad at the moment. And then McRae's the only one that I've had of all those other injuries, which is good, because obviously I don't have Horn Francis. But yeah, that Whitfield came in for me last week. Max Holmes, disappointing, but I'm still kind of all right that I've got him because I love his run home. So realistically for me, it's all about trying to get Lindsay, Gross, Bice and Trainer up. And this is where some of the chat about Gawn and even Cherry come into it, because if you look at the Cherry, who's 715, and he's got a break even of 89, and then Gawn, who's actually got a massive break even now and will start dropping cash. Both of them look like probably being combined for at least 1.5 million. So this was the discussion around, okay, if outside, as you said, Cooper Simpson, if you don't have options to get in and you've still got these rookies that you're going to have to upgrade, is it better to have Gawn and Cherry and trying to work around these rookies to hopefully get them up? Maybe it's just to a mid-price and that becomes a stepping stone if you don't have the cash gen going. Or is it better to say Gawn and then potentially Cherry at some point down to a 500k ruck? So I know a few people last week went to Conning, or even they had other rucks where they went down to Marshall, brought Marshall down into their flex and got him for 500 or 450. Do you now move Marshall from your flex into your ruck, move Gawn on, and get a 500k midfielder, and then put that extra 215k or whatever on one of these rookies? Maybe you've got still a Murphy Reed or a Bice. You could potentially, with that 200k, turn Bice into Bailey Dell or Jordan Clark or somebody like that. And all of a sudden, instead of having a primo, and he's an uber premium Gawn, and a rookie, you can potentially have two premiums in your team. So that's where the little bit of the thought is. There's some risk, and Chris, probably the first thing, we'll get into your question properly. But these guys who are actually bottoming out in price are all around that 500k mark. Your Heaney's, your Andersons, or Sarong. Let's hypothetically say you've got Gawn and Sardis or whatever rookie you want, and you've already got Marshall sitting there or TDK. If you swap Gawn out, all of a sudden you've got 715k just with him or whatever. Gawn's price 744. So you've got 744 there, and then you trade out whatever rookie, you add those two together, you potentially can bring in both Heaney and Anderson or both Heaney and Sarong. So is your team looking better? Because can Gawn realistically keep up? Like last week, he came back down to a 119. Like, yeah, he's not going to pull out and score 150s, 160s every week. It's just not possible to do. And even Cherry, who's flying at the moment, we saw that those 4 weeks where he came back and started scoring 80s. He's rebounded again. Like in the history of Supercoach, with Gary Ablett Jr. had 1 year where he averaged 140. It's just not sustainable to keep averaging that. So that's where a little bit of the thought is, where potentially you could do that. And then the hope is Gawn or Cherry, they get injured, they have a few low games, they come back in price, and then you maybe you're able to upgrade your Marshall back to a Cherry or Gawn for later in the year if you've got a spare trade. So there's no fixed way of playing Supercoach, but that is definitely an option if you are really struggling with cash gen. Thoughts, Trav?
Agree. If I play devil's advocate here, the fact with Gawn and Zeri at the moment is, aside from those two putting up the 150s occasionally, they're also that captainable score that you can sort of depend on. If you do go your route of Heaney, Anderson, Sarong, don't get me wrong, Anderson put out a 150, but I don't see him as dependable putting up a 150 for your captain where you're getting double those points. So if your argument is like Sarong plus another premium, would that equal to what Gawn or Zeri put out? If most of the time when you have Gawn or Zeri, you're putting the C on them as well. So you're losing that high ceiling game as well, especially with Sarong and Heaney. I haven't seen them put out those massive games. And to be honest, it's actually been hard to find other captain options aside those two rucks this year. I've been lucky with Captain Zeri the last few weeks, but me not having Gawn, I really felt it those weeks. Gawn did go 140. I felt I was dropping off from rankings even more just by not having him, and then people getting the double score on him.
And I was thinking that too, because the captaincy is obviously a big issue. Some of these premiums will come good. Like we're looking at Dacos as obviously having a real down period at the moment, but the guy's such a good footballer, he should come good. You look at Gawn's scores, and also it is dependent on matchups. Like Richmond obviously gave up a lot of points from the ruck, the 174. West Coast outside of last week, and that's the 198. And even Hawthorn are known for giving up scores to rucks of the 142. So Essendon, he gave up 145. Again, a team that can give up points. There's some of their points are skewed over the last couple of years because they've been a tough ruck matchup, but that was still when they, obviously brought Goldie in last year, who's still a tough guy to score against. So when now Gawn starts coming up against, like a Darcy Cameron, who was actually a hard ruck to score against, Witts, we know he struggles, Cherry later on the year. There is a period there where it is hard, and then it may open up again. So that's where, does that come down is, if he's only scoring 110s or 115s, and, he's got the ability. We know how good he is, that he can score on any given week, a good score, but he is still aging. The season will take its toll. If he starts putting up some of those scores that he did earlier in the year, is that a guy that I want for 750K if he's only putting up 100, 110? And so it does go both ways, and there's no right or wrong. You're going to get burnt one way or the other. And I look at what my co-host Chris did when he traded out Sheasel very early on the season. He made the very quick call on, I don't think it's Sheasel's year, and he's still flying well enough, but there was a period of time there where Sheasel early in the year, he had that 81. So after, I think, first game, he traded him, and then he went 81, 89. The 144 hurt him, but the 102 and the 86. And he traded him to George Hewitt. So Hewitt at the time was about 500K. And then Hewitt's gone like 130, 140, whatever. And now he's turned, because Hewitt's made so much money, he turned Hewitt into Bont.
Yeah.
So these are the risks where some people do it. And that's why Chris is sitting wherever he is in the top 1,000 right now.
Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind is like exactly what you were saying before is, are you playing for leagues? Are you playing for overalls? And then your buy structure as well all comes into play. I think for example, for me on my team this year, the round 16 buy is pretty bad. So I will need to factor all my trades in with the upcoming buys as well. So team dependent on your buys. If you can get 2 premiums for Gawn that are going to suit your buy structure better, I think this year with the 3 injuries that have happened now just before buys, you can really try and push ahead during the buys if you plan for them accordingly.
Yeah, and this is like, I'm saying, definitely don't do this move right now. I should have probably said that from the start. But as you're entering Gawn, potentially around 15, so depending on where he is in cash, if he's still flying, it might be a different story. But if he hits his round 15 buy, and he's had probably a period there where he's only going 110, he's going to drop bulk cash, and hopefully he hasn't dropped bulk cash from here to now. And you've just come off that round 14 buy, and you're looking at Collingwood, Sydney, Suns, and you don't have an Anderson, or if Dacos is still in that 550 range and he starts to get going again, and you're like, oh God, everyone's got these players, how am I going to get them in? Well, there's a potential move there that you could do, which could land you 2 premiums and also not have to deal with that, missing that player's buy. So yeah, it as you said, it all comes down buy structure, leagues, everything that comes into it. And also, like, leagues is an interesting discussion anyway, because all of us are in different leagues. Now, the standard these days is 20 teams, but some people are in 12 teams, 14 teams. So though most of us are playing finals around that round 20 mark, some people are playing finals earlier, depending on how your league's set up. So you've got to double check all that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think with, for example, in like the Parkfield leagues especially, you'll see that some people playing for overall will run out of trades towards the end of the year, and those holding trades will end up winning their league. So factor it where you are in your league now. If you're struggling to make finals now and you need to make a risky move, do it now just so you make sure you get into finals. I think that's also dependent on where you're sitting in your leagues. So like a lot of my trades this week, because I held a few early on, and I know now I need to make finals, I'll probably end up trading McRae, even though I could actually hold him because I don't have Horn-Francis, but I'll trade him just to get that extra premium on field to make sure I win the next few league games to get into finals.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I'm debating right now about the whole McRae, because I could hold him, which means I could do other stuff with my team, but at the same time, it's an advantage. As you said, other people have got, some people have Newcomb as well, got to deal with that situation. There's so many other injuries going around this week, where, some people are just absolutely been hammered. And I think there's going to be there's always a lot of movement during buy periods, but especially right now, with how the amount of carnage, and not just the carnage from the premium point of view, but obviously the rookies. A lot of people brought in your boy Sard last week, and he's going to be dropped.
The fact that he got subbed was just unbelievable.
Mate, give me your thoughts on it before we get into the questions. I'll let you loose for a minute. So Trav's a big Essendon guy, and I'm sure you've got some opinions about the Bombers, mate. So before we get into your questions, we've got to hear from Trav here.
I'll try and be quick, because I can talk about this for hours. I always lower my expectations coming into the season as an Essendon man. I said, we're going to be 10 to 12 this year. As long as we play the young guys, that's fine. We win a few games in a row. I know they were against lower teams, but naturally my hopes just lifted a little bit. I knew coming into the Bulldogs game, we're going to probably lose this game. I just did not want to expect us to lose by like 100, nearly 100 points, not kick a goal. It was just really demoralizing because I got my hopes up a little bit again after we beat all those bottom teams who actually could have been in the 8 if bloody Wayne Pereira's Geelong beat GWS, but they didn't. So we stayed out the 8, but I just did not expect us to get smashed that badly. And then to cap it all off, he's subbing out like Saad LOI. Obviously, if Supercoach wise, it affected me, but also, why are you subbing out a young player in a game we're going to lose anyway to bring on Dylan Shield, who I can't stand Dylan Shield. Like when he was in the midfield before, he used to butcher the ball. You move him to half back where you need your elite kicks to be there. He's playing half back, didn't do anything. Put him in the midfield. To be fair, he actually had a couple good games in the midfield, but there's just no need to be subbing off Saad for Dylan Shield. Like I do think as Joe is saying, Brad Scott has lost the plot. I was filthy watching the game and then seeing Saad get subbed. And people at work who don't even follow footy, there's a guy, I think he's in the chat, his name's Nick Gollop. He's coming up to me saying, "Hey, don't you go for Essendon? I saw they get smashed on the weekend by the Bulldogs." Like that just hurts even more after my hopes got risen up a little bit. And yeah, Sartis is another example, like dominating the VFL. People like Shield, I just don't think there's any point playing them now. Like they're not going to be part of the next 5 years. We get in these high draft picks, we don't give them a chance. What's the point? Like they're not developing. I guarantee you, like people like Hobbs, Sartis, those type of names, if they were in a club with a good culture, a good development program like Geelong, they'd be flying. Like we've had that many top 10 draft picks not develop into actually reasonable players in their 4th and 5th years that it's just really demoralizing. Like I can't see where the club's going right now. We're not even giving the youth a chance to develop.
I love it, mate. I love that passion because I obviously live with it. My community know my other half is a very passionate Essendon supporter. Good mate of ours, Nico, very passionate. And so I said it to him, "I'm not going to Dreamtime with you this year, mate. I can't kill it." But yeah,
you could beat us.
We could actually.
Yeah.
My issue, I was like, the only reason I could see Saad being sub was he was making the rest of the boys look bad because I felt like he was actually giving some drive and stuff like that. And I was like, I feel like it was the Ross Lyon thing when he subbed out Garcia. So he's clearly Saad wasn't doing whatever team structure that
maybe he wasn't tackling or wasn't defending as much as he could have or something like that.
Yeah. And we obviously don't see that and what the message is behind closed doors. So clearly Saad wasn't doing that. So that's why he gets subbed. But the difference there where Ross Lyon did say, I gave him a spray, but he's coming in this week. He's playing midfield. I'm telling him
now, backed him in,
give him the opportunity. So Scott really needed to do this for Saad this week. Hey, I'm going to put you in this. And now he not only gets subbed off, but out the side you go. And that just absolutely shatters your confidence for he's still a young fellow and stuff like that. So it's not what you think, especially like you look at some of the other players that were struggling on the weekend. I thought Perkins probably played his worst game for the season.
Yeah, but he has been better this year, Perkins.
He has been better 100%, but at the same time, he had his worst game. You've got Caldwell coming back from injury, who was clearly a yard off, and no problems. Like I feel like. Scott even said the whole idea was we didn't care about the margin. We wanted to play our brand and stuff like that. And keep
attacking.
What's the harm in like saying, okay, we're going to take Caldwell as like for like anyway, but just obviously an older version with Shield coming on, and let the young fellas keep getting that exposure as it is, as you've said. It made no sense why it was started. And as a non-owner, it doesn't affect me, but just from a footy perspective, I was just like, this makes. So can we get a coach on here, like our club person, Paddy? He's been involved in it. Maybe he can come in and explain. It's just like it made no sense to me at all. But
my worry is exactly what Joe's saying in the chat. Like someone like a Sartis, every chance at NDA he requests a trade or he wants.
100%. He's coming to Richmond,
and he's a top 5 draft. Like, what's the point? Exactly. The thing is Richmond as well. I actually think. I can see what you're trying to do. There's a clear thing. You're developing your young players. You're playing them all. You have some light at the end of the tunnel. With Essendon, I don't know what they're doing. They're playing these older guys. They're not giving our young guys a proper red hot go. I don't care if we get smashed every week if the young guys are having a crack and are in the team. But they've got this policy where they just keep playing the older guys in positions where they don't need to be played. Make Shield the sub and like leave him off the ground to the third quarter, then bring him on maybe, but not for someone young who's trying to have an impact and just starting their career. As Joe said, the morale is getting cooked, and I can't see any development going forward.
I love footy at the moment. Like going, even like the loss to North Melbourne, I'd walked out going, like the North Melbourne supporters near us were hugging and they were in tears, and it meant a lot to them, probably more than for us. But it's still, I walked out going, well, we could have won that game, Taranto, or there was, I think McAuliffe missed goals late, and I was like, well, if they kick kick those goals, we win the game, and that's how close. And with obviously some young players out there, like I can see it. And okay, yes, it's North who have been struggling, but they do have some young kids coming through. But outside of like the Port Adelaide game, at least like St Kilda and Freo were in it till half time and then we got blown away. But every game I'm going, like I've attended, we've either won or we've been in games and that. I'm like I can at least see it where, I'm hearing this, obviously Bomber supporters, Saints supporters, like that would have been frustrating, obviously, with the with the loss to West Coast. Obviously, there was a lot more going on. And I should have mentioned this way earlier. Condolences, obviously, to the Selwood family and everything that's going on there. And obviously reach out if any mental health issues, guys. There's always support, always chats open for that. We've got a great community. And so I should have mentioned that earlier because, obviously it's a really sad weekend for football. Also to the Walls family too. That's probably been lost in the wash because of everything that's been going on with the Selwoods. But so it's obviously a very sad weekend. But the West Coast players were amazing. I nearly changed my tip for that, and I should have in the end because I felt like they were always going to get up for that game. But the Saints supporters, you'd be you'd be feeling probably the same, very similar to Essendon in many ways. All right, Michael, thanks, mate. Always good seeing you. Your question, Big Dog. I know you've already hit me up in the chat. He's got Finn Callahan, Huswaite, who's doing bugger all. You never know. With Newcomb, we'll wait and see if Huswaite comes back in. Fingers crossed. It'll probably be Nash. Do they make the two changes? We'll see. And McRae, so you're looking at bringing Simpson into Huswaite to get the money, Jen. Tom Green, and I'll talk about that in 2 seconds. Shea Bolton, loving Shea Bolton, really frustrated by the fact that with that 5, I thought, you beauty, I'm going to pick him up here for 300 and something. I know the quality of the guy, and the bloody prick's come out and actually gone up in value, let alone. Is that somebody you're tempted about, mate?
Do you think it's because of Hayden Young going out that's helped him as well in the midfield?
Yeah, I do. And I think also that change in structure, when they've got Jackson as the ruck, they look a completely different side than when they play Darcy. Darcy's more that defensive kind of ruckman, the way they set up and play, where Jackson's just such a free, wild beast really in there. And so I feel like their whole mentality changes. And Shea looks like he's always been that sort of player when he's energetic, and if you're playing attacking footy, he's going to get on the end of it. He's not somebody, if you're struggling, he's going to put in the hard yards. And but if they're up and about and they look a more attacking team with Jackson providing that opportunity, he's going to get himself involved. And he's always had the ability to do games like this and go in periods.
Agree. I think for me, being risk averse though, like I actually have Bolton in one of my draft leagues, and he's just too yo-yo, and he's dependent on Freo. As you just said, he's dependent on Freo's ability to move the ball fast and be on the attack and move. And something about Freo when you're watching them, their game plan is normally slow. So if he is playing forward a lot, the entries coming in are not going to be as effective for him if they're playing that slow kick to kick. And I think as well, like that yo-yo effect, like can you depend on him? Like he could cost you a couple of league wins back in the back end of the season compared to someone who can just has a bit of a higher floor. And personally myself, I think I have too many Fremantle players as it is. So the round 13 buy, funnily enough, is actually a buy I have to watch out for, which is another reason I'll trade McRae. So I think I see a few McRae trades in the chart. I think it depends. If you're okay for that round 13 buy, you could hold McRae, but I have to trade him just because I have 6. I think I have 6 at.
I'm the same. I've got like everyone's like, oh, they're easy buy, and I just keep loading up on them. I'm like, maybe it's not so. Exactly. About Tom Green, mate, I'd actually go away from there. There's actually potentially carrying an injury as well. So you need to watch that with teams. It's so he hasn't pulled up 100%. I think he still probably might get up and stuff, but there is a little bit of a concern. I would probably go down, especially for the better buy, the Heaney or the Anderson route. We know what Anderson does at home. We should know the ability of the guy. He's the captain. The Suns are flying. He will have some yo-yo games as well, but he's obviously quality. And Isaac Heaney, I love him. I think he's probably underrated. Remember, he was probably the best player in the comp for the first 6, 7, 8 weeks. If he gets going, especially if the Swans start getting players back where Mills will be close, Goulden's getting closer, he'll be much better for that as they start stringing them together. Lukey, thanks for coming. Trav, the great man. Yes, of course. I always muck this up. Insulator, thanks for jumping on as always. Kev, mate, good cricket man. Thanks, mate. Always good. Glad coming on. Any chance Wayno learns what a fair trade on the show is? Hey, we've got a draft league, guys, and Wayne makes the worst trades in the history of trades. I've mentioned this a few times.
I think he's watching now, and the funny part is I'm not in this draft league, but he always comes up to me and says that everyone in the Parkfield League, I reckon he says especially 40 shocking traders. So it's funny to see the other side of the story.
It's you, Wayne. It's all you. So Lukey coming from Poland, guys. So thank you so much for joining us from overseas. It's great to have an overseas listener as well. So I'm thinking Bolton might be worth the price. Seems to regain some. So I love him. Trav's not so much because of the yo-yo. Lukey, I'm sure you love taking risks, and I love the actual photo that you've got up there too, mate. It's yeah. So if you're more risk averse, or as Travis said, yeah, it all depends on that round 13 buy. But I am biased because I'm a former Tiger and I do love the guy. So. But I do like this, Loogie. You're ranked 225, so the risk is probably worth it because if Shea goes off any more kind of weeks, it's going to help. Where you're in that sort of position now where you probably want to play risk. Who cares if you drop out to 500, 700, 1,000? You have actually a legitimate chance if things go right during the buys because you need to be in touching distance after the buy rounds, but there's always a lot of movement during that. So if it comes off, you could be easily in that top 100 and as I showed, was it Oliver's tone before, a lot of people are trying to side swap this week. So if the players who are people inside the top 100 are making 3 sideways and you're only making 1 sideways and potentially upgrade another player, you're going to be obviously ahead of the game. Derek, thanks, mate, for loving Travis's work there. Appreciate, mate, you bringing everybody onto this one today. Chris, this is what we're talking about. Heaney, Anderson, or Sarong. I'll get you to rank these ones, mate.
I think I'd go again. Not many people have many players out on the round 13 buy, so I'd go Sarong. I think Brayshaw is going to start getting the tag a bit more than Sarong, as we saw with Bedford against GWS. Heaney and Anderson. I'm actually tossing up on this too because I need one of those two for the. I think it's the round. I need someone from the round 14 and round 15 buys because that's why I have the most coverage. So I need to choose out of those two. I'm leaning towards Anderson at the moment just because he's only got 2 sub tons on the year. So I think his floor is a bit higher. Only concern with Anderson now, I think after that 150 against Hawthorn, he becomes the tag, to cop the tag with the Row having been a bit down lately. I'd go Anderson personally. I think Gold Coast this year are going to be a bit better. They're probably going to win more games than Sydney from what we've seen so far. So out of those, Heaney and Anderson, I'd go Anderson, but I'd say Sarong number 1.
Yeah, I guess it depends if you're chasing rank or how you're feeling with that. Heaney's only 6% own of the top 1% at the moment. Break even is great with the 79. And their draw for the Swans, geez, it opens up. So the D's this week, the Crows at home, the Tigers, they got Port Power, a couple of tougher games there, but these are at home with the Doggies and Freo. Then it's the Saints and North Melbourne. And then I think they play the Bombers. So there is a period of there where they are playing teams. Obviously, the Swans are down bottom, but if they get on a roll, we know how many games they won in a row yet last year, and Heaney's going to be driving that from the midfield. So, there's some games there that he could really pay out on. Probably a little bit difference with the Suns, as much as Anderson will still play well, especially if they're home games. But they do have a few tougher games coming up, with especially the fact that they've got Freo into Geelong and then into the Giants, which you're going to have Bedford tag one of them. And if Bedford goes to Anderson, that's always going to be a bit of a struggle. And even then, the Melbourne's going to be interesting because who Oliver, if he continues to run with. But there's definitely a period there where there's a slight tougher, the draw does get tougher, and they have played a lot of their easier runs of easier teams in the start of the year where they did have your Norths and your Richmonds. It won't be as easy as it was, but the Suns obviously are flying. But I'm a massive fan of Sarong, so I think Sarong's number 1. For me, I'm going to go Heaney and then I'm going to go Anderson. It'd be kind of, as you said, Trav, buy structure is going to be everything. I can't even say that name, but nice one, Trav. Is that Shri Kant Tiger?
Yeah. Avid Geelong supporter. He is an avid Geelong supporter, Shri. He's just learning the game.
All the Cat supporters going on. Okay, all right. Do I go cash gen, Visitini and Cooper Simpson, or do I trade out premiums? Finn Callahan, McRae, Horn Francis, no boosts remaining. Any ideas? This is where it starts getting interesting with the no boost. McRae, I feel like you can hold because he's going to have his buy soon anyway. So you're getting 2 weeks without him, and then it's his.
Just quickly, any thoughts on the rumors of JHF running laps at training and saying he thinks it's only going to be 1 week? Do we discuss that?
So he's going 2 weeks because he's got his buy. So he misses this week, has his buy. Interesting. Potentially. Maybe the no ice baths approach has actually worked for him. You'd be that option, Trav, wouldn't you? You'd be the no ice baths.
I don't think I've ever done one piece of recovery in my life.
And you're a gun cricketer, so there you go, guys. It actually shows something. I'm allowed to talk
Completely
about this
different
one.
sport, though. I stand and slip and ball of 2 steps, and I don't run when I bat.
Yeah, don't run when you bat and just make runs for fun. It's great. That's the key, guys. That is the key. That's why I'm in perfect health as a cricketer. They're definitely the Horne-Francis McRae. If you've got the backup, especially in the forward line, and you've got rookies, so you could potentially bring Cooper Simpson. Obviously, is a better cover for Horne-Francis because it's a different buy anyway. And he is playing out that role that he's got quite well at the moment. So you could definitely use him as your cover for Horne-Francis. So I think that's an easier hold. Finn Callaghan has to go. That's just a no
I don't think he's a top 8 mid. He's not a top 8 mid anyway. So at least you can make the argument for McRae and Horne-Francis that they'll be top in their line.
So you could potentially, because you've still got the flex covering, maybe a McRae, and you just take that donut if you don't have the 2 rookies, or at least if you're playing the rookies, you can get cover. You could potentially still make the cash by trading out Callaghan and another dead rookie, bringing in Visitini and Cooper Simpson, using them as your cover for your McRae and Horne-Francis for this period. And remember, it's best 18 anyway for the buy anyway. And then you get them back for the rest of the buy period. At least they get their buys over and done with quickly. So that's the best. So I think Callaghan has to go, and you could potentially do the side swap for him for a premium. But as you said, if your cash gen is a problem, you could definitely go Visitini and Cooper Simpson for that. And remembering that you've got best 18 anyway. So I don't mind that move. Yeah, I think by the look you're thinking about that, Trav. But Michael, thinking the splitting of Gawn will be a play in round 13 when he has the Pies, Port, Gold Coast North. Probably awkward timing that doesn't align for them. Yep, and as I said, it's not for everyone. If it aligns for you and you need the cash, and you've got the way of doing it, no problems at all. So this is not for everyone, but I definitely think the way some people have, if you don't have Reed, or if you never got on Murphy Reed, all the Reeds or Elijah Hewitt and don't have these guys to trade out, and you're looking a bit like my bench at the moment with your Camperellis and Huss Waits and Boxer Shells who are doing literally nothing for us. Sardis.
Yeah.
Sad Al-Hali. Well, there's so many of them. Just go on and on and on. And you literally have no cash gen. And you're not able to bring in Simpson and Visitini this week because you're trying to fix all the other issues happening in your team. Well, these are options that you're going to have to look at, because how else are you going to bring in cash to upgrade your team? And it might not be uber premium, but at least it's premium, so can still average 110. So that's definitely a thought. What are Geelong's chances against the Bulldogs? So I'm pretty sure they're still favourites at the moment. But mate, I'm so annoyed. I had to swap shifts because I'm not allowed to work more than 12 in a row. So I was going to end up working tomorrow and have Friday off and watch this game. So I'm not going to watch as much as this game as I might have to watch it on replay or something. But what a cracking Thursday night game of footy we've got ahead of us.
I don't think this game probably in the last 4 weeks, probably the one I'm most excited for. Just after the comments and Bailey Smith going against it, I really hope Libba goes straight to Bailey Smith and the opening bands, just gives them a couple, and I want to see the verbal. I'm normally I don't think it'll just bring people to the game. I think there'll be a packed out crowd there as well, so it'll be a great game to watch.
So Geelong are slight favourites at the moment with the bookies for starters. I actually want to kind of see the opposite. I want to see the first quarter the Bulldogs give Bailey Smith nothing. No interaction with him, just absolutely cold. See how he kind of reacts to how that's going on, and try to get him.
Because he said he thrives with this sort of stuff, so you want to see how he reacts when no one gives it to him.
Exactly, and then hit him at the start of the second quarter, because if he thinks it's not happening in the first, he's probably like, okay, they're not going to go out. I might have to do that, and then start of the second quarter, but like the quarter time huddle, whatever, just run through him there and just be like, what the hell just happened? So that's how I would actually instruct the players to do it. I'd be like, give him nothing, boys.
Yeah, fair enough. Quick question on this for you, Swiz. I guess it'll help people with their VC choices. Who does Mullen tag, and does he tag? Does he go to the Bont, or is the Bont too big?
I think it's Ed Richards. 100%. It's got to be Ed Richards. As you said, the Bont can play multiple positions. Ed Richards is the man now in that midfield, which allows the Bont to do what he wants to do. So I'd be shocked if it was anyone else. They're not going to tag Libba. And really, Matty Kennedy, again, plays different positions. So that seems to be obvious one. And as you said, Bont, he's big. And do they really want the risk of Mullen having to follow Bont down to the forward line and try to isolate that situation? where Richards obviously doesn't have those sort of skills just because obviously he's a different physique than what Bont is.
Yep, fair enough.
G-Bags, hey fellas, who should I look at holding over the buy? So we have talked about that, Horn Francis. It comes down to those two. I think probably Horn Francis is probably the, well, again, it depends on your buy structure too, because a lot of people are struggling with that first buy, where others are, probably Trav and I are a bit unique here, but struggling a little bit more with the round 13 buy. So yeah, first identify that, because again, it's best 18. There might be a world you can hold both. But if you really do need to trade one, if they had the same buy, I think it would be McRae, just because he hasn't been performing that well anyway. It's like 3 scores in the 70s out of his last 4 games.
Yeah. I think his tackle numbers are down. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Swiz, but I'm pretty sure he hasn't been the same tackling-wise.
It's actually his centre. I think it's his time on ground, and maybe even his CBAs are down as well. So yeah. I feel like Ross is using them differently, and they've got this situation now because they're still playing Garcia. You've got Philippou back, so the rotation. I think there's more rotation through that midfield, and especially now that they're probably going to play Phil. I was originally thinking about bringing Philippou in this week. I won't now because he's obviously struggled, but would not be surprised with McRae out that he gets bulk midfield time. Yeah. And we saw this happen last year. Obviously, McRae wasn't at the club at the time, where he just went on an absolute heater. So maybe third game in. It might take him another week, but it wouldn't surprise me if this guy gets on an absolute heater. And if he does, then what goes? It's probably more Jack Steele, or maybe there's a balance between McRae and Steele when McRae comes back, if Philippou gets on this heater that I expect him to do. But yeah, there's definitely been a bit of a slight change there, which has affected McRae. All right, Joe, thanks, mate. As always, you're an absolute ledge, big Essendon man on every other podcast that I'm not on. So I do appreciate you jumping on as always. Matty Grimm, now here is the man who is dominating the A-League. One of my great mates, big Richmond supporter. How important it is to get off McRae and Horn Francis first, getting one and grabbing Simpson, who seems to be the only decent rookie that exists the next month, though we thought others were good rookies. And it's a great point about the idea that we thought some of these other guys would be great rookies, and they just have not been. It does feel like Simpson is slightly different, but in saying that, with all rookies, there is risk. At least the feeling is we should get at least a couple of weeks out of there, Simpson. It doesn't seem like there's an obvious replacement right now with the kind of the role that he's playing, but there is. We've been burnt so many times this year. You've got to actually really consider that.
Well, also the question with that one is, couldn't Matthew trade one of those dead rookies to Simpson and upgrade? And I think he's maybe phrased it differently to what I'm thinking, but don't trade one of them straight to Simpson and just bank the cash. You're pretty sure you trade one of your dead ones up.
Yeah, and I think that comes into it. Yeah, so you could potentially, but between trading one and going, and as you said, or just going out and doing maybe it's like some people might be able to do it, say Bice or Trainer. If you're somebody like me who's got a Whitfield in your flex, so you can rack off one of them and just bring in Simpson into your forward line, or some people still got Connor Stone that can do stuff. So you got those guys still in the midfield. You might have Elijah Hewitt, and you might have to move somebody so you can get in a Simpson. So yeah, you're getting a rookie that's cashed out to make the 200K or whatever, and at least you can use that. Or as you said, maybe it's a completely dead rookie, and you can use that in that way. So there's many options here, but I think Grimo has brought up there is got to be a risk. I talk about as you said, you're quite risk averse. And we've seen enough issues with some of these rookies this year. So I feel like, again, Grimo, I know on your side and you're quite highly ranked, you're probably going to want Horn Francis back in your side anyway. So I feel like you could carry him more. Potentially, could you go McRae and side swap him, and then with one more trade, because I know you've used all your boosts, Simpson from a dead rookie or one of the rookies that's made cash. That's probably the way I would do it there. I think that's probably the best way around it. All right, Chris Ross. The key to Supercoach is picking the cheap premium who is about to turn his season around. Get them on the way up, not when they're there. So who is about to turn their season around? Geez, this is a brilliant question.
Could you argue Swiz Matty Rao after his 124, 460K? Is that too risky? Could he just go on a run now? after that 120 again? Because that is very good value if you can average like 110 for the rest of the year at
Oh,
460.
mate, I've been big on Matty Rowell the entire time. It's just been sort of kind of disappointing what he's sort of he had that lull period again, and it always seems to be the case. Like we're just waiting for him to be that real consistent player, and it always does seem to happen. I'm just kind of having a look. These are the moves, like those people who jumped on once Marshall got onto 450k. I'm like, well, this guy's too good to be at 450k. I'm just going to jump on him now, and he's going to turn it around. And you usually see this more with like sort of those sort of ruck types, unless there's somebody who's come back from an injury. So that's where I personally like Heaney at that price, because I feel like the Swans, their draw is starting to open up. And that's more time that they've had under their new coach for structure, and they're getting players back. So once their team gets back, it does make it them a harder team to obviously defend and they're straight. And I have to remember Heaney averaged 144 for the first 5 weeks last year. So it's not like this guy doesn't have a history of being one of the best players in the comp. So that's why I kind of do like him. I know Chris has been talking up to me LDU at 500k. Did seem like he was getting back in sort of the right positions last week. Scored the 117. I think, I was kind of worried because of how their midfield structure, but you always know that he's going to play in their midfield no matter what. And they do have some good games, like the Pies coming up, who are definitely under my end and do get scored well against in the midfield. You've got I think they got West Coast after that. Their draw on the run home's not too bad from a midfield type. So kind of looking at those sort of under, like who else from an underpriced period. Josh Dacos is one that I sort of would have been spooking last week if I was on the sort of podcast. And then the big ones, I feel like you've got to monitor anybody from Geelong. Somebody messaged me last week who actually got on Mark Blissaves. Well done to that person because he was playing ruck and he's gone 130, 128 last 2 weeks.
I did see Stanley named again this week, though.
He did get named again, which is and I just couldn't go near that because of that sort of situation. But geez, well done, because those left field millers, and you already made sort of 60k from that move, and you're getting massive scores. I wouldn't go. I'm trying to look at other people that might have bottomed out. I wouldn't go near Sicily. I just hate the pick completely. Matty Rowell at 450. It feels like it's too cheap for. I'd nearly hold off because I'm always worried about like sort of Windhagen, what happens over there. Hopefully he's around that same price around his buy, but they're surely he puts it together. Outside of that, there's not a lot of players who have actually really dropped. But there's some guys who are probably averaging under what we expect them to do especially from a midfield point of view. So your Sarongs, Nick Dacos is an obvious one there for those people who don't own him. He's we know the guy's an absolute superstar, but he's not performing to the levels that we probably expect at the moment. There's probably not as many right now that are jumping out at us, but I think that might change over the next sort of couple of weeks. And hopefully as we get to those players who have already had their buys early on, a couple other players sort of start to stand out, look like they've turned their season around. And then sometimes that's just because of, fixturing and everything like that. But trying to find these undervalued premiums. The one I haven't mentioned so far at all is Dawson from Adelaide. 546. It does have a high break even this week, but he is playing the Eagles. Does have Richmond, Melbourne's round 16, 17, and then gets the Eagles and North on the run home again.
Does he spend too much time forward? That scares you a bit. Like, especially obviously Crouch is out now, but I still saw him deep forward against the Pies, even though he scored well. If Crouch comes back, is he a season long?
And this is where and I would have rather jumped on him at sort of when he was at that 500k mark, because at least you're just like, okay, I feel like at 500k, if he has a bad odd game, well, I only paid 500k for him. But in saying that, like, there's games there where he will just tear like West Coast apart this week.
Yeah.
But there's other games there where you're right. You'll probably, like against Hawthorn, you'll probably come out and score 70. And it's just so he's the sort of guy that if you're going to own him, you may as well just own him the entire time, because it'll all average out in the end, and you're probably getting 1.5, 1.10 for him. and then he's potentially, if they're playing early in the round, he's a VC. But Chris, I'm going to think more about that question as I come through the week as well, and keep an eye on a couple other players, because it's kind of a funny season at the moment. We've got guys who are, a lot of the midfielders are kind of that 105, so it's not like they're going badly. They're just not going the 120s that we've had in the past.
I think that's why the Gawn thing scares me, because I feel like he's got that high ceiling, and there's not many fallback options for your captain this year, because those midfielders aren't putting up those big ceiling scores that we normally see.
It's a fair point. But at the same time, I don't know if it continues. Like, how long can he keep going for? Well,
I think
Gawn's going to be about 45 now, doesn't he?
Yeah. He has to get rested once. I think Heaney was my favorite out of the ones you mentioned there, Swiz, for underpriced. About to break out.
I think he really is. Yeah, 100%. Heaney, he's the one that just streams out. Yeah, Joe, I see what you're talking about before. Goes up, so we're going nuts in the chat. I love it.
Laverde's another one.
I'll get. Oh yeah. Yeah, for everybody playing at home, this is what. Joe,
that's a good call.
Joe's going nuts. I love it. Corey, I'm thinking of McRae and Cleary to Sinclair and Simpson, and 122k in the bank, and use my last boost like round 13. The only thing with these last boosts, yes, it gives you an extra trade, but you already got 3 trades through the buys anyway. Yeah, the 4 trades may come in handy, but who the hell's making 4 trades on any given week? If you've got the opportunity to potentially make your team better this week, and Corey, for you, so McRae and Cleary, makes no sense to Sinclair and Simpson. Sinclair is one who's slightly undervalued at the moment, especially if Wanganeen Malira is struggling a little bit on his ankle. It's just perfect time to bring in Sinks. Could you potentially 122k on a dead rookie that you could move to your flex if you don't have a third ruck, and put it on to get Visitini, as long as Port haven't named Sweet or done anything stupid there, but it doesn't look like that's going to be the case. And you could potentially get another cash boost from like a mid-pricer, treating him a bit like a cheaper version of Flynn, get a few weeks out of him, hopefully through the buys, and get him up to 400k. Might be a way of using that bank and using that last boost, but but that's fine the way I think you've got it anyway. G-Bags, who's the better option to bring in, Holmes or Sinclair?
I think that's just buyer dependent. So I think Sinclair probably is a bit of a higher floor, will score better, but again, buyer dependent. If you're the round 13 buy, if you don't have many St Kilda and Freo players, I think you go Sinclair, because he'll cover you all those other tough buy rounds. For me personally, the Geelong buy I've already got a lot of Brisbane and Essendon players, so I couldn't afford to bring in Holmes. But if I had to choose one long term, I'd go Sinclair. I just think Holmes, for some reason, just puts out a 70 here or there. I can't work out why, though, because he's got a great role. He starts in the middle, drifts down back, takes kickouts. Either Geelong's just such a good system-based team that they share points around and still win games, but there's just something about Holmes. He just hasn't hit those consistent scores. I remember, Swiz, you said a couple of years ago you thought Holmes was going to be like the next big thing in Supercoach, lock him in. I think it was 23 you were saying that.
No, last year, because I wrote the article about it in the paper. Started 2024. It's probably the I can actually, because it'll be in print forever. I can actually say it was in the Herald Sun with an article me saying Max Holmes will be the next big thing. He's going midfield, Geelong's number 1 midfield, lock him in for the next 10 years kind of thing. I love it. Love how you brought that up, Trav, with no prompting at all too. But you're right. He does put the odd stinker in, and he's got some absolute stinking scores, like 80, 70, 76, 72 this season. But then that's all mixed with a 127, 147, 134. Early if Max Holmes is on, because you're like, oh, you beauty. And there's so many people own him. That's one of the other reasons that got on, because 33% of the comp own him. And you look at this feature, so it's a bit tougher this week, Bulldogs. But this might be the first time for all year that Bailey Smith gets the attention, and Max Holmes will run around and do whatever he wants. Then after this, this is why I'm so big on Geelong. And this actually probably comes up to, was it Chris's question a little bit ago about, Chris, in regards to who's underpriced, because there's a couple of players that I really like here that are getting no attention through at Geelong. But so after this week, they play West Coast, which the Geelong players should have a field day there. They get the Suns, which will be a big game for the Suns, but it's down in Geelong. We know what they're like in Geelong. They get the Bombers in the country game at the MCG, and you guys will put up no defence to the Cats, because they smash you every time.
Every time. Wayne Perry just has it over me every time.
And then they get this period of Geelong games. So they play the Lions, but it's down Geelong. They get Richmond in Geelong. The Giants, which is their tough game up in there because they never beat the Giants anyway, and it is up in the Giants. Then they get St Kilda back in Geelong, North Melbourne at Marvel, Port Adelaide in Geelong, Essendon in Geelong. If that is not the greatest run, and that's without finishing off the season against Richmond again at the MCG. So, somebody asked me about who you still like. The ladder's very close. Who you see finishing top of the ladder? If Geelong beat the Bulldogs this week, they're finishing top. Like, just literally lock it in now, because though they are prone to drop the odd game against, say, a GWS, they are absolutely not just winning these games. Down Geelong, they will be smoking teams. And Max Holmes is playing midfield in it. So any team that does not put attention in, he is great. But then you talk about what Chris's questions like, who's kind of underpriced, who's not getting talked about, so Tom Stewart's back this week. Not this week because he's 129 break even and his body's like shot. So I get a little bit worried, but there might be a price where he gets interesting. But players that are of interest of me in particular is Jeremy Cameron, because if he's getting that much ball, and we saw last week, he was on one leg. He did not touch the ball for the first 45 minutes. He's had the doctor come out to him 3 times because he had some twist in his knee. And then he's like, no, I'm right. I'll go kick 7 goals from then on. And just have an absolute field day. So against some of those teams, like, he's a big chance to win the Coleman because he'll just absolutely smoke them. And one that's massively undervalued for this year because he's at the start of the year is actually Myers. So he actually started to get going the last couple of weeks, but because he had that 51 against the Hawks and the 68 against Adelaide, he's dropped to under 400K. And though not the most consistent guy, because he still throws in the odd, like the last year against the Dogs, he had a 32 and a 47. But there were periods last year, like he was like, I think there was, I'll get it up here. So he went 105, 86, 81, 125, 96, 119. So he guy at home, if you're looking for a value F6, I guess, and especially the fact that you've got a flex position that covers for a guy that could probably go off. Jeremy Cameron's probably the one with the highest ceiling, but it's these sort of Geelong guys. I know someone brought up Sean Manor the other day as well to me, who's definitely been showing that role. He had the 3 weeks this year already where he went 102, 109, 113. So these Geelong guys who play in their half forward line, who push up into that midfield, which is not the strongest midfield, especially now Dangerfield coming back. When he does, he'll probably play more forward because, he'll be worried about the hamstring. These guys will be the ones pushing up. And against those teams with that sort of draw on that run home, I want shares in more than 2 Geelong players. Yep. Just which one. But so that's where I think some of your undervalued that could turn it around could be in that spot.
Yeah, I think for me, it's a bit risky. If you have no other option, I'd go those Myers and Cameron types. But I just think F6 this year with Warner and Petrarca now forwards as well, I think your F6 needs to be averaging 95 plus. It's not like last year, the last couple were undecided, but I think there's more than 6 forwards. But yeah, each of their own. Cash in, so cooked. If you have no other choice, there's definitely nothing wrong with having Cameron as your F6 who can put out a big spike score and win you a final.
But I agree. Well, I agree with you. You got Bailey Smith, say Rankin, Horn, Francis. Yeah, Bailey Smith, Rankin, Horn, Francis, Warner, Petrarca. Warner. That's 5. That's 5, yep. The other ones is like McRae's people are getting rid of because potentially, but he's been struggling the last 3 out of the last 4 weeks. So question marks. Caleb Daniel is all role dependent on if Sheasel plays back or not. Yeah. Because the moment Sheasel goes back, Daniel's irrelevant. But last week, Sheasel played the half forward play, and then Daniel scores a 97. So, and then Marriage is the one that keeps ticking on for us. But there's got to be maybe a point where Marriage probably cuts out. If he keeps going as a season keeper, I'm loving Marriage. It's my D6 and my F6.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's the one which I'm like, if he starts struggling and I need that F6, and I've already got those other 5 guys, I don't mind taking the risk on the Geelong player because they're going to spike games, and cool. My flex then just covers somebody else. And if they go shit, well, cool. My flex covers them for that week. And as you said, it might be the difference of me winning finals and stuff because someone's like, how the hell do you have this player who's just gone 140?
Exactly. It was a massive pod. Yeah.
So, that's just some of the thinking around there. Richmond is, mate, 100%. Come join the party, Joe. You love coming to Richmond games with me, mate. Mickey, evening lads. 2 options to hear your thoughts: Cleary, Hewitt, McRae for Simpson, Bolton, and Whitfield with 100K in the bank, or Simpson, Dunkley, and Green with 2K in the bank. I think this is pretty obvious, but I'll get your thoughts first, Trav.
Cleary, Hewitt, and McRae for Simpson. Yeah, I think I'd go the first option here with 100K in the bank for your upgrades for the following weeks. And as we said, even for using a boost this week, I have a feeling a lot of people just end up having boosts to spare at the end of the season just because you get those extra boosts during the buy rounds anyway for free. So first option for me here. And I did hear you just mention Green's potentially pulled up sore as well. So I'd go number one.
Yeah, 100%. I like Dunkley. I really rate the Dunkley pick, but I think Whitfield's just one of those guys. It was killing me not having him for a while. And yeah, I just moved heavy. That's another reason. It's well, it works from home. So I would have gone Marshall, and my good mate Grimo recommended it, but I was so hell-bent on getting Visitini. I'm like, I don't have another ruck spot right now. And as much as, it probably would have made sense. I was just I want the cash gen from Visitini to do stuff. But maybe I should have gone Marshall, and then try to get another way to get Holmes in. But I think Whitfield is a legitimate VC captain option. We know what he does in the defense. He just doesn't look like dropping not just under 100, but he didn't have a great game last week, and he went 109. So he's gone. Two scores over 140 this year, couple others over 120. And one score under 100. Like the way they play, he's just everything goes through him. Amazing player. Corey, we'll skip over the North Melbourne chat. No, it was good for you. Worth waiting one more week to get Nick Dacos? Mate, it's potentially worth waiting until he's at his
even
buy.
more.
Break even's 162. He could come out and score that. But the reason why definitely it's worth waiting, because there's one guy that literally plays 2 games a year, and that's the following week when they play Hawthorn. In comes Finn McGuinness. Yeah. It's literally that's his role. It's in his bio, he's linking to be play against Collingwood to tag Nick Dacos.
That's his only role. And I saw I heard Craig McRae during the week talking about, I don't think I've seen as much attention going to one player besides Nick Dacos. Teams who don't even tag are just making up plays to tag him. So you will still spike score those big games. I think Brisbane tried to tag him that third quarter, didn't work, but he was already on 120. Yeah. But I think Dacos he obviously still is a top at midfield, but I don't think you need to rush him, and he's not as much of a must have as he was last year, just because how much attention he's getting.
Yeah, it's gone down as my worst trade of the year by far.
Yeah.
Before Anzac Day, Zach Reid to Nick Dacos.
Oh, that's a kill.
How in the world has that turned into a negative
shocker
for point scoring?
Yeah, that is and the worst part is I actually told Stevie Cannon, one of the Parkfield former captain, to trade in Dacos before the Fremantle game. And he's been cursing me since because he's gone on a stinking run. But it's just not the same this year just because of the amount of attention he's getting.
I should put that up with my last phone call from Stevie Cannon, who may have known that you were coming on this show. Glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
What's your plans with what's my plans with Flynn at R3? I've actually got rid of him. I got rid of him last week. But if you've still got him with R3, would you get Sims this week and stick him in the 4 line until you try? Yeah, I don't mind that. I would have got Sims. I had to get Boyd in because the only way I could do that trade. And in the end, I'm annoyed at myself because maybe if I didn't get Whitfield, I could have just got Bailey Dell with Holmes or Marshall or whatever. But who cares? That's gone now. But yeah, I don't mind Sims as a player. I think he actually quite looks good, and it does give you that flip option, so you can do that because. I get what you're saying with wait to see if a ruck's drafted in MSD. At least if you get Sims, you can potentially, if the Bombers, which looks the most likely, and it could be, let's say, Crosley, who they may need to bring in straight away. So if they do that, then at least you can flip Sims back to F8, put Crosley in there at R3. If he makes cash, great. It works out well for you. And then once he's cashed out, you can bring Sims back into you. So he's the obvious one. He's the one that I did want, but kind of had no choice with the way it played out for me. But yeah, no, I think that's definitely a play there, mate. HTC, hey, Swiz, so many potential trades. Yes. McRae, Daniel, who a lot of people were talking about last week, those people who messaged me, I was firm on holding Daniel for Sinclair and Bolton, or hold McRae and go Cleary and Langford. Langford? Oh, yeah, Langford. I was thinking you're Langford for a second, but no, Hawthorns. Melbourne's Langford. For Sinclair and Sims, already got Simpson. Already good that you've gone Simpson. Yeah, I personally like the second one because you're upgrading 2 rookies to get a premium in.
Yeah, agree. Getting rid of those. I think Cleary and Langford are at their time as well. So
Yeah, and that's where I'm kind of looking. I didn't really talk much about my side, but your Cleary types, or I haven't decided which way I want to go, if it's Trainer or Cleary, but I'm feeling like one of them's going out for Simpson just to get a rookie who's probably done. Potentially, I might need to hold them just because at least they're playing. Like at least Trainer I know is playing this couple weeks. Cleary's still playing. I'll probably hold them and maybe let's move a dead rookie instead. But if they're just because I think I need a couple players playing next week. So yeah, you could easily hold. You got to be mindful of that too, guys. Obviously, we are best 18, but you are missing players. So holding these rookies, even if they're not going to make any cash or slightly drop cash, is their 50 going to be more important part of that best 18 if you're going to need them?
I think
a
couple to mention for me who I wanted to trade, but I'm going to hold to their buys, like a Levi Ashcroft type. He's definitely not going to make more money. His break-even's 86, but he will hover around that price, potentially lose money, but his coverage during those tougher buy rounds, and I'll trade him at his buy. Same with, I'm potentially thinking Max Hall. Like he's probably ready to go this week, but I'll use him for rounds 11 and 12 and then flip him on his buy. Even though they're going to lose money, I think it's more important. You really want to have at least like 20 odd players playing just to cover those stinker scores, even though it's 18. And those rookies who are going to hover, even though you could trade them, as you know, I'm risk averse. I've said it about 10 times now. I'll hold those players just to try and make sure I get rid of those stinker scores off the ground.
Yep, I like that. That's good advice. If not Nick Dacos, who's better to get at a similar price? Is Sinclair? If you don't have Sinclair in the mid, he's actually slightly cheaper. I think he's the one that of all the guys that at their price just seems to stand out. And you talk about that again, that question earlier from Chris, who's turned it around? Well, since the last 2 weeks, 124, 131, had his little lull. Everyone's talking about getting him in, and I'm already an owner, and I'm like, oh yeah, Sinclair. I could have got him like 60K cheaper, but in the same time, there was a couple of games where his points were pretty valuable. I really like him and his role at St Kilda, so I think he's an obvious one. Sarong's not setting the world on fire, but he's. It's interesting. So many people bagging the fact, people who own Sarong and stuff like that.
Score's pretty high still. His low scores aren't stinkers, and he's got more attention. I think the attention would turn to Brayshaw more now, so hopefully an uptick in his scoring.
He had an 80 against St Kilda, and he's had a 99 against Sydney. Every other game is over 100. So okay, cool. Yeah, we probably paid maybe 100K more than, it's 90K more than I would have wanted. But at the same time, the guy plays every week. He's still averaging 106, and I'd rather own him than not. Because as you said, it won't take much for in the 117 against a GWS team. It's pretty solid. And if they're winning games, and this is all I always feel like they're going to get on a run at some point. They do have those 3 games in a row in Perth against North, Essendon, and St Kilda throughout the bye period. And he is prime. If Brayshaw's getting the attention, he is prime VC in those games.
Mm-hmm. Agree.
What price are MSD options typically? So most are going to come in at 99K. The problem is your Parfits, your Crosleys, players who have played before, they can be it can be anything, especially off their averages and stuff like that. So you've got to obviously have a look at what their average was last time they played. I haven't actually looked that closely at what Parfit was averaging to sort of give. Sometimes if they've had the less than 10 games, they'll have the 10%. If they've had the less than 10 games over a couple of years, they start getting the 30% or the 40% discount. So depending on the injuries and stuff, I might, as we talk, might try to have a little look as we get through these last few questions here. So we'll try to fly through some of these because you guys have been awesome as always out there. Tristan, for Simpson trade out, who would you trade out? Bustlinger, Huswaite, Hall. There's plenty of options there, mate.
Okay, I can take this one. So basically, what I was saying before, people like Max Hall, definitely going to play. I wouldn't trade him at. Cleary or Hewitt, again, team dependent on your buy structure. I think out of those, from what I'm seeing, Huswaite with Connor Nash coming back, it's a big call because he was such a popular rookie, but I feel like he's got the hardest, who have the hardest time squeezing back into that Hawthorn team now. Not sure why he got subbed out in the first place. I'm sure took him off that game, which sort of killed him because I thought he was one of the better rookies. But I would go Bustlinger or Huswaite out of those. I think Boxer had a really good game in the VFL last week, and I think he would have lost to West Coast, so he's a chance of coming back. Hewitt, I'm assuming you mean the Hewitt from West Coast with EWT at the end. He will, I think he will keep playing games for West Coast because he's an impact player. So I would trade the ones who are dead just because I want to get those dead rookies off. And I think that would be Bustlinger or Huswaite. Clay Hall, again, West Coast, because they're so young, it's a rookie roulette there. But something about Sam Mitchell and Huswaite, I don't know why, I just got this bad feeling that he might not come back. I could be wrong, though.
He does. I don't think he likes him for whatever
there's
reason.
something weird there.
So about Parfitt, he did average 70 odd last time, but he did play the 9 games back to back. So he should be around that 350K, probably a 10% discount, which makes him 300, which makes him not pickable. But if they give him the 30% discount, then it's at 245. If he comes straight in that midfield, maybe, but still a bit higher than what I'd want to pay anyway. So I'm thinking Parfitt's probably not an option, which is just a shame because he'll be just priced out, and you probably got a guy who's, you might have a sub-affected game where he's probably going to score 70s anyway, and you're not going to make the cash from him as it is. Stuart Peatling with Crouch out for 4 weeks as a forward is good. MJ's been huge on him. He probably had a bit of a downgrade last week, but against West Coast this week, he could just go absolute bananas. So that's more than fine, especially the fact that he's a forward. If he was just a mid, I'd be like, meh.
Yeah, no.
But the fact that he is a forward, 475 is a bit more than what I paid. Like, he still went 95 last week against us, but his last 3 weeks have been great. 109, 117, 95 would have been great to pick him back up at 420 stuff. He's made, for those who started him, there's about 4%, 5%. They've made 122K from him, and you're now getting the reward. So well done to those people.
Yeah, agree. I think if you're going to look to get him into then trade him out, just keep in mind how many trades you have left. If you're going to trade him in, and then just knowing he's not going to probably be a keeper.
Yeah, that's the problem there. You're probably not making him as much cash, but
enough money.
Yeah, hopefully there's another. Well, you don't want to wish another injury, but if there's another injury, he keeps his spot.
Yeah,
keep going from there. Chisholm, McRae to Bolton, or upgrade a rookie and hold McRae. I don't mind the McRae to Bolton one more than probably some of the other ones that people are putting up, but I get the risk. And as you said, if you can upgrade a rookie, and especially if you can upgrade, downgrade, and bring in Bolton anyway, that's probably definitely the better move.
Yeah,
if you're a fan of Shea Bolton. Chris. Yeah. Oh yes, because Chris Scott is a crown talking about Smith. Jeez. Scotty, evening fellas. 2 approaches here: trading Cleary to Simpson, and upgrading Hewitt to Bolton. That's what we were talking earlier. There, or holding McRae, and while holding McRae, cool. Or trade McRae to an Anderson, Heaney, Bolton, which banks you over 200K for Bont and Butters. Now this changes everything. So that that first approach is the approach that you should go. However, if that 200K does mean you can get in Bont or Butters, especially Butters, who is going to drop in cash, like his break even's over 200.
Yeah, but after his buy, right?
After his buy.
After his buy, yeah.
It is definitely the move that you need to be considering. So I'm actually, I don't mind the second. I always think the first one, but if that's how you're setting up, and Butters, who's already dropped 60K this week, 633K, break even of 206, got that 53 in his cycle for a couple of weeks. So his projections at the moment, even if he goes like averages 120 odd the next 2 weeks, he's going to drop to 570. And that first week after his buy, he's going to get the Bedford tag. So potentially it could be even cheaper. So you might not even need the 200. You might even be able to find a way to do it without that money and stuff. Bont's a different story, because I feel like if you're going to want Bont, you're going to have to pay for him, because he's just never dropping. The guy's just an absolute beast. Hope he wins the Brownlow. But yeah, Butters, I feel like there's real potential to pick him up here, potentially in that. Hopefully he just doesn't do what Buddy Zachy Merritt did a couple of weeks, and we're going to pick him up for sub 550, and then North Melbourne let him score like 300 points in a quarter. And it just
probably blessing in disguise when he put out the 75 against the Bulldogs, though.
True. And then he's going to come out and dominate us this week. Do you think Tom McCartney will make an impact at AFL? I'll have to think about that. I'm just, you know what? I've given that literally no thought before. So that's one I'll get back to you personally on that one. Let me think about that one. Is Simpson a must-have? I'm scared to miss out. Not a must-have, but I like the role. He's playing that sort of wing, coming off half-back in parts. But we've said this before, it's just so dangerous with rookies. I just don't see the obvious guy that's coming in, coming back in at the moment for them. I'm just sort of having a look through their injury list now.
I think he's a must-have just because there's no other options.
And that's the other part too.
That's the only thing I would say.
Nothing on the horizon. Like Fife's a week away, but Fife's always a week away. So like, Jager Amira 3 to 4. That's not happening. Narkle's now 7. He's probably not coming in. And then Hayden Young, you're 10 weeks. And you're looking at the rest of the list, you're just like, there's nobody else that's potentially in that position. So it's only going to be if he probably plays a couple bad games and, they put take him out because he's obviously, moving rookies. But Freo are usually pretty good with their rookies. Like you see how they've backed in Murphy Reed. They've always been pretty friendly for the Supercoach community in regards to that. So I'm thinking of trading Bice, McRae, Callahan to Whitfield, Green, and Bolton. I'm not as much on the Green, maybe a Dunkley or whatever, just to worry about that. But again, it comes down to your buy structure. But
Definitely
Whitfield, I think you're turning Bice into Whitfield. Like, what's not to like about that? And then, try to maybe find maybe another midfield option. Just maybe wait and see the reports on Green. But, the early diagnosis was, he could be fine. Obviously, everyone's thinking Finn Callahan's there, but I just did hear some rumors that he might be just a little bit struggling. I've actually gone out in draft leagues. Probably Wayne and Lukey are waiting for this sort of information, but I've gone out and got like your Callum Wards or anybody who plays midfield in the GWS that have been sitting on the waivers and stuff. I'm like, get in my team, because if there's a chance that Green at any point misses, they literally have no one else at the moment. Grimo, I see a lot of people bringing in a defender after defender, but we have Rosie to swing back, Coleman coming in, Mills coming. If you get too many, where you may play him. This is a great point, Grimo. Love it. This is why you come on and comment, mate. So
do you think it's just because there's a lack of, no one trusts the midfield at the moment, where you can trust the defenders more? I think the reason I'm upgrading defense first, because I think I can see a line of at least 6 or 7 defenders who are these guys will be top 6 or 7. With the midfield, obviously you got a couple of guys who are unattainable butters at the moment. There's a bit more up in the air. They're just not scoring as well as we thought in the midfield. Even a Lockie Neal, even though he's a value, he's just not outputting enough when he gets a tag. So I think I agree with you though. Everyone is bringing defenders, but I think it's because they're unsure of the midfield.
Yeah, and then the role seam and halfback flanks the new inside midfield, especially if they're taking kick-ins. I think you can get this is one of the other reasons why I like Holmes, because I can put him in my flex, because then he covers I can swap him to my mid if I need to, swap him, it gives me a lot of flexibility too. So I can play where some people are going the 7 rucks, but obviously when Visitini cashes out, then Holmes just goes back in there, and I'm leaning towards the 7 defenders. That's how I'm feeling on it. Unless the Conning or whatever gets back into form, and I'm just like, I just got to have this guy back in. But I feel like the defenders, as you said, just more reliable. So you're probably wanting Whitfield, Sheasel, Zorko, Sinclair, and then your other groups, your Bailey Dells, your Clarks. There's a whole lot, and then Rosie comes into that mix. Holmes. So you've probably got 8 guys there, and you've got 6 plus a flex position. So you can definitely have 7 of them. But as you said, Coleman, Mills coming in. At least if you've got guys like, I guess, your Holmes and your Sinclair, you can move them into M7, M8. And if you're not trusting these M7s and M8s, and say Sinclair, you're backing him in to get 110, and you think Holmes or Bailey Dell can go 110 plus on the run home, and you're only thinking like a Heaney or a Rowell that's going to go 105, 16, 17.
Put them in the midfield.
Well, put them in the midfield anyway. So you're probably better off, and then Mills and Colemans and those guys can come in. But it is a good point. It definitely something to think about. Well, good on you, Grimo. Haydos, you've got 2 options for us as we'll start winding some of this up. But so you said that. Carroll and Clearly for Bolton Simpsons. We've had this at multiple times with 103 in the bank. Yep. Or what's your other one? Or move Horn Francis McRae and have your first one. So anybody asking about this, I'll start scripting through this because we've mentioned it 100 times already. Nakos was a mistake to bring in. Geez, Roger, hasn't he been? Who would have thought? I think just literally dominated Brisbane, and he's about to dominate Essendon as he always does, and it's all gone wrong. All gone wrong for us. And I'm always against the Dacos family. I'm not picking him. I always fade him. And of course, this year I get him in. And as Collingwood supporters at the time, were actually messaged me like, don't get Dacos. How do I not listen to Collingwood supporters on that? TK, hey lads, hope you're doing well. Horn Francis, McRae, we've talked about this. Husway Campo. I'm going to leave these questions again and go back through the early show. We've said if you can hold your Horn Francis and your McRae's, try to get into the other rookies. Thinking of holding Trainer, moving Campo to Kitty Coleman instead.
I think not this week. Yeah, wait.
No. Yeah, no, I'd wait. And then they've got their bye coming up. Oh no, they've got some time
Around
before
16.
their bye, so you could probably wait. Yeah, wait 1 week, have a look. Yeah. At least he's with Bolter out. Oh, that must be a trainer, holding trainer. Yeah. Well, Bolter's out the next 2 weeks, so you can definitely hold trainer, for sure. All right, we'll get in the last couple of questions. Hawksy, hey fellas, I had Callahan and McRae move into Bailey-Dale and Simpson. My round 12 buy is already very good, so I'm going to jump on before he goes up. We'll be fielding 2 rookies forward, but banking 466K. Well, aren't you going to go shopping through the buys?
Yeah.
Yeah, but then so you're going to look at bringing in Rankin. The only problem is trading next week. You're bringing in guys who haven't had their buy yet, so you kind of don't want to trade first week of final, unless it's a rookie. So just be mindful of that. We haven't actually mentioned that at all. I'm happy to sacrifice Cullen to go into defense, as I have about 4 defender midfielders. Yeah, but I think if Cullen being out for 4 to 6, I think you've just got to trade him. Other guys, it's a different story because they're only 1 to 2. Will Sheasel need to eventually go if he keeps playing forward?
I think so.
Yes.
Yes.
Like this is what Chris did earlier in the year. His break even's now 153, but the problem is he does have West Coast straight after his bye, so he could go there. He's not going to drop a huge amount of cash. He's at this sort of weird, awkward point where he's now at sort of 550 on any given week. He can sort of pop a good score. There's a big chance against the Pies he probably does play a little bit more back. But then, probably West Coast, he plays more forward in that midfield role, but he could score well against them. Yeah, I think it's definitely a watch.
It's a watch, and also depending on how many trades you have left and other fires that you need to put out in your team. Like, I wouldn't prioritize this unless everything else in your team is set.
Yes, 100%. So, definitely food for thought there. I did have one, Jay. What's wrong, Tom Green? I believe just pulled up sore from the weekend. I did have actually in one of my chats. I usually write down all the injuries and then completely forget where I wrote that. And I was like, oh, how unprofessional that is. But I did hear something about it was just, I think it was just soreness. So it wasn't like he was potentially going to miss, but it was just the fact that, he might be a little bit struggling. But yeah, in saying that, the guy, knowing that, we've seen this before, players who are injured, I've recommended everyone not to get Tom Green, and they'll probably come out and still score like 120 and be like Jeremy Cameron last week, play off one leg and kick 7. It's just always the case. Well, guys, first, I think that's all of the questions. So thank you so much, as always, for jumping on. Trav, thank you for coming on, making your debut on the show. You've been very insightful, and it's been awesome having you on, mate.
Thanks for having me, Swiz, and thanks for plugging the Footy King good early on in the show. I really appreciate it. Good luck with it.
No problem. As I said, guys, listen to an episode. Especially listen to the episode where Trav just literally pays out on Essendon. I think, is that this week or was that last week, mate?
This week's after the Bulldogs game. Shocker.
Yes, that's the one. Just find that footage and definitely, listen to that, because I think every Essendon supporter out there will probably be agreeing.
Yeah, it's just it's demoralising. And this, I genuinely think, I don't know if you're going to the game this week, but I would not be surprised if Richmond beat us. And I think it will be a great close game, which it shouldn't be, but it couldn't even be a blowout to Richmond at this point. That's how demoralised us Essendon fans are.
I think you guys beat us by a goal. It's like you should.
It's always close.
You'll beat us by a goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a period of the 6 years I remember we never beat you, which was hard. And then the last couple of years we've come up a bit.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. But there's some of these games. This could be one of these really close rounds, but there'll surely be some surprise where a team absolutely blows out another one. But yeah, it's some absolute cracking games on the weekend. They've got the Marvel double header too, first of 2 this year. So Carlton, GWS. Then there's the MCG game in between, and then there's another Marvel game, North Melbourne Collingwood. So
that game last year was great, North Melbourne Collingwood. Hopefully similar this year. Anyway, thanks, Swiz. Really appreciate it.
No problems. Thanks, Trav. Thanks, community. As again, check them out, check Trav out. But more, and if you got questions, I guess you can always hit Trevor. But yeah, hit me up, X Supercoach Insider 100 or Swiz 26 for me directly, and we will try to answer it. We'll take care. See you guys.